Greetings, and welcome to the Cinema Sanctum. I'm sure you figured out what this channel is, so I'm not going to get into that. But what I will be discussing is Jeremy Saulnier's 2016 film Green Room. Before we get into the episode, I want to let you know what's in store. First, I'm going to give my spoiler-free review, followed by a physical media spotlight, and then finally, a candid ramble with spoilers to wrap things up. Let's get started.
Okay, I'm with the 8 Rights from Washington, D.C. You guys are hard to find. Why no social media presence?
Music is shared live. It's time and aggression. You gotta be there.
Sorry guys, we gotta clear out. Follow me?
And then it's over. Holy shit.
Green Room tells the story of the 8 Rights, a hardcore punk band who finds themselves at the gig from hell when they accidentally walk in on a grisly backstage murder in a neo-Nazi-run bar. Trapped and unarmed with no way to call for help, the band must fight to survive against a pack of merciless skinheads who will stop at nothing to snuff them out. Distributed by 824, this 95-minute R-rated thriller stars Anton Yelchin, Patrick Stewart, Imogen Poots, Alia Shawkat, and Macon Blair. So here's my spoiler-free review of Green Room. Look, it's a simple premise. The protagonist plays a gig, they witness something the antagonist didn't want them to see, and then the nemesis won't let them leave. We've seen it 100 times. But what makes Green Room so engrossing is its characters and how they each choose to navigate the nightmare as it unfolds. Of course, you know, characters don't work if the actors behind them aren't convincing, and honestly, I can't think of a single performance that felt weak or stilted in this entire film. First, you got Anton Yelchin, who sadly passed away shortly after Green Room released. He arguably gives the finest performance of his career as Pat, the 8 Rights unassuming bassist and the film's central protagonist. Then, in a rare play against type, you got Patrick Stewart taking on the role of the nemesis, Darcy Banker, an eloquently vicious neo-Nazi kingpin whose only objective is to violently tie up loose ends to preserve his livelihood. Green Room also features excellent performances from its supporting cast. I'm talking about Imogen Poots as Amber, Alia Shawkat as Sam, Callum Turner as Tiger, Joe Cole as Reese, and Saulnier's go-to guy, Macon Blair, as Gabe. Each of these actors gives what I can only describe as a fully realized, authentic performance, and I think a lot of that has to do with writer-director Jeremy Saulnier's approach to making film. If you've seen Murder Party or Blue Ruin, Saulnier's talent for using nuance over exposition should come as no surprise. He gives very little backstory on any of his characters, and yet I came away feeling like I knew exactly who they were or who they'd be in the world outside of the movie. With Green Room, Saulnier takes the finer elements of his 2 prior films, he crafts them into a terrifyingly grounded atmosphere, and then rolls it out at a breakneck pace that's then pushed over the edge thanks to Sean Porter's gritty, claustrophobic cinematography and a nerve-wracking score from the Blair brothers. I mean, to this day, Green Room remains one of the only films I've screened as an adult that caused me so much anxiety, I almost had to hit pause to come up for air. So if you're looking for a film that's high on suspense, with horror elements peppered throughout, excellent performances, music, practical makeup effects, and cinematography, you can't go wrong with Green Room. I highly recommend it.
It's fucking hard, man.
Before we move into the physical media spotlight, I just want to say that this video is in no way sponsored by Second Sight Films or 824. I purchased this copy with my own money as a consumer, and if that ever changes, I'll let you know. Now let's get physical. Green Room is finally available on 4K UHD and Dolby Vision HDR from Second Sight Films. This limited edition box set includes premium packaging with vibrant new artwork, a 120-page book of essays, and 6 collector's art cards. Special features can be found on both the UHD and Blu-ray discs and include a variety of audio commentaries, interviews, and featurettes. For more information on this release, please visit the Second Sight website I've linked in the description below. Okay, so look, I'm not going to be doing a deep dive on the technicalities of 4K UHD and whatnot because there are plenty of other YouTube channels that handle that better than I can. For this review, I decided to watch the streaming 1080p version I own on Vudu back-to-back with this 4K release, and here are my thoughts. This Second Sight release is noticeably sharper with a wider color range, especially in the darker scenes. Nothing is lost in the shadows, and I didn't notice any black crush. Now correct me in the comments below if I'm wrong, but to my knowledge, Green Room was shot on the RE Lexus, so the source footage most likely didn't have an abundance of noticeable grain. And to my eye, that element of the presentation was kept intact. There's been no additional smoothing. I also appreciate the fact that they didn't feel compelled to boost the darker scenes because the use of light or lack thereof is an integral part of this film's overall gritty aesthetic. Audio-wise, I don't have anything negative to report. I watched the 4K on 2 different setups, one with a sound system, one using built-in TV speakers, and the mix was balanced and enjoyable on both. As for the packaging, everything in the box was inspired and covered with the new beautiful artwork, which was also featured on those 6 collector art cards my OCD will not allow me to open. The 120-page book of essays appears to be well constructed, but I don't want to crease it. What can I say? I'm a sick man. Fortunately, I did have the opportunity to watch all the special features as well as listen to all of the commentaries. And while they're all great, I found the new interview with Jeremy Saulnier to be my favorite. I highly recommend checking that out if you pick up any version of this specific release. Overall, I consider this to be an excellent effort from Second Sight Films and a must-own if you're a fan of the film. Alright, so at this point, if you haven't seen Green Room and don't want anything spoiled, it's best to stop watching until you do, because this next segment will be spoiler heavy and I'd hate to ruin the film for you.
Careful now.
Alright, so it's finally time to discuss spoilers. I mean, I'm sure it's probably very obvious that the previous segments were scripted. This, however, is going to be more shoot from the hip, a little bit looser, now that I can speak freely about the film. So yeah, I'm just going to jump right in with a key element that I feel makes Green Room so effective. That's got to be the ain't rights. The way Saulnier chose to handle them, how they all have points of view, defined roles, talents, reasons for being in the story. But there's none of that typical band bullshit that goes on. And I'm talking about one guy doesn't like the songs, one guy gets too much attention, this one's sleeping with that one's girlfriend. And I'm not saying that featuring those tropes is bad or ruins the movie, but in this premise, if you want your audience to get behind the band, you gotta make them a team, you gotta cut out the turmoil, you gotta make them a unit. That's not to say the members of the band don't asshole throughout the film, because they do. Pat and Sam, for instance, stealing gas, that's an asshole move. Reese bracing Tad over money, that's an asshole move. Tiger's general dismissiveness towards the interview, that crude interaction he has with Cousin Dan, he's an asshole. But what's important is that they don't asshole to each other. At least not that we see. I think that was smart that they didn't write in these moments where we saw them bickering, because they could have done it in the very beginning of the film, right? You got Tiger crashes the van in the cornfield, runs out all the gas. Everybody could have jumped on him. It could have been 5 minutes of everybody bitches out Tiger and all this turmoil enters the fold. They don't do that. The other important thing is that they all get the turn at leadership. You got Reese. He's the muscle. He's the drummer. I'd say he's probably the first to pick up the torch, subduing Justin. I love how he gets behind him kind of tactically because he's bigger and he's got to take him down. But what's interesting about him is that when he realizes that he kills the man, there's remorse and he kind of retreats to the corner of the room. I'm not saying that he's white flagging it, but I didn't get the sense that he was going to be the shot caller anymore. He seemed more like he was going to follow people into battle, not really lead the charge. Then there's Tiger, who I think becomes a leader out of his own stubbornness. While Reese was fight, Tiger's flight, and while everyone else is trying to troubleshoot the situation, discussing, debating, whatever, Tiger's in the far end of the room, looking for a vent or a weak patch of drywall away through the floor, which he finds, but that's through perseverance. Sometimes that's leadership, right? Just pick it and stick it. Then you got Sam. She's got double duty. She's the band manager. She's the guitarist. I'd say one moment that sticks out to me is when she makes the decision not to trust or arm Amber, because who knows what that chick will do, right? She's in league with the skinheads. Who's to say she won't unlock the door and use the band as collateral to barter for her own life? And I think Sam's kind of smart for calling that out. I think she could have had a knee-jerk reaction of handing over the gun without thinking, but as scared as she was, she really kept her cool. And then, of course, we got Pat. Pat's not prepared or built for this shit, but he's got 2 things going for him in the leadership category. One of them is his calm, passive nature, which makes him the natural choice to speak on behalf of the band with Darcy. And then the second one is his ability to dig deep and equate a story about paintballing and some guy he knew who ran out and beat this team of military guys because he did the unexpected and he did it fearlessly. That shows up at the end. That's nice setup and payoff. I think this is one of Anton Yelchin's finest performances. I think it's his best. I mean, he's emotional, but he's not obnoxious. There's this great moment where he's got this scene with Patrick Stewart. It's through the door, and you just see him when he realizes that they're not going to get a phone and the cops aren't coming, and, they're not going to get to keep the firearm. it's all just going south. Man, it's like watching somebody get handed a death sentence. He's just so broken and defeated. His voice cracks, his body goes. It's just the whole thing. I also like that he holds onto his humanity. So when Amber shoots Clark, and I love that reference to The Thing, but when she does that, he's still not committed to killing. He says something like, oh, we're really doing that? To me, that makes me feel like we've linked up with a protagonist who's worth rooting for beyond the scope of the story. Like, he's a genuinely good person. And then the fact that, like, the kill shot on Darcy comes from his gun, that's just beautiful. Next, I should probably talk about Amber. She's pretty interesting. She's like a shapeshifter of sorts as far as character goes. Like I said, she's a skinhead by default, but seems to not really be in on the whole movement thing or whatever. She's not like a true believer. We first see her hysterical. She just witnessed Emily's death, and she's looking for help, and she turns to Pat and says, like, you know, can you call the cops or can you call the police? I think she's kind of in a tough spot, too, once they get trapped in the green room, because the band doesn't trust her, and, like, her own skinhead peers view her as a loose end. So she's got a target on her back, but she doesn't get the same treatment from the band. Throughout the film, though, she's got to do a series of things to earn and, I guess, keep the trust of the band. One moment I thought was brilliant was when the power goes out and Big Justin is, you know, they can't see him because it's completely dark. Everybody's kind of panicking, and then she lights the cig up, puts it in his mouth, tells him to shoot the cherry if it does something you don't like. I also love that she gets the vengeance moment because she has a bit less character development. I feel like it's appropriately simple. I think it would shortchange Pat to have something like that. On the topic of true believers, I do love that the skinheads are presented in tiers. They aren't all hardcore, bloodthirsty maniacs. You get the sense that more of them are probably just there for the party. I mean, even Darcy feels compelled when he shuts down the show to remind them that it's a movement and not a party. I appreciated the way Green Room also allows the scenic to deliver the message of neo-Nazi movement stuff and not lay it on thick in the dialogue. That could have been real hokey. That could have made them feel almost cartoony, felt inappropriate. But this bar has more than enough swastikas and Nazi scribblings. You got flags hanging all over the place, whatnot. I mean, it says a lot without saying shit. It's designed like a skinhead VFW hall. I think it's interesting that it's a front for a heroin operation. I love the feel of it. It feels dark and ominous right from the beginning. It looks like a place where bad shit happens. It looks more like a cage match is going to go down when they're playing than a music performance. While I'm chatting about the skinheads, I guess I'll bring up Gabe, Macon Blair's character, probably my favorite performance in the entire film because I love his art. He's calm, he's business-minded. There's something very genuine about him. He's not a good guy, but he's interesting. He does what he can to take the heat off when the cops are called. He does what he can to try to keep the band calm, even when he basically tells them they can't leave. Where he gets really interesting is when the violence kicks off, because it becomes increasingly clear that he doesn't have the stomach for it. He isn't as much of a true believer as some of the other ones, or maybe somebody in his position might have to be. By the end, he doesn't even want to have anything to do with the movement at all. I love that while everyone else picks up a weapon, he picks up a mop. He literally gets caught with a mop and a bucket in his hand and says, I want to go to jail, and then leads Pat and Amber to Darcy before running to get the police. He's not anything close to a virtuous character, but he's got some kind of conscience, and I think that makes him interesting. I guess the only main character that I haven't mentioned is Darcy. Yeah, because what can I say? I mean, it's Patrick Stewart. He brings a real sense of composure to the role. We do witness a burst of violence against Gabe in the hallway, but I think he resets like a gentleman. I love the fact that he's concerned about the fire code, obviously to keep the heat off the heroin operation. I think he was perfect for this role. I think that his demeanor made it believable that impressionable people looking for like a tribe or a leader would fall under him. They'd listen to him, carry out his wishes, kill for him, whatever. But once the drugs entered the fold, he felt so small to me. After all this grandstanding and this posturing, he was merely just a piece of shit drug dealer. I mean, he's selling drugs to the people who prop him up. He's ruining their lives. What a jerk off. He gets a much deserved death. I'll say that. It's like a sloppy death. And the fact that it comes from a pacifist, that's like the ultimate cosmic joke of an exit for that character. Anyway, before I get to the end of the film and, you know, this ramble, I almost forgot to mention a few setup payoff things that I want to touch on. First off, the shotgun under the bar from Tiger's dying perspective. He knows it's there, but he can't say anything because his throat's been ripped out by a dog. He's gargling on his blood, but that means the audience knows it's there. And then later, Darcy makes a comment about something they forgot. We don't get to see what the answer of what they forgot was. You know who answers it? The bartender. You know, Daniel walks down to look for the gun behind the bar, and his face gets blown off. Like, you forgot about that. At least I did. The first time I saw this film, it shocked the shit out of me. The next one was the moment where Worm tells Pat that he killed Emily to one of their songs. I mean, man, the look of, are you fucking serious, that Justin gives him as he exits is so subtle and perfect. It's like, yeah, man, like, I'm trying to keep this shit calm. I'm trying to keep these people from not flipping out. And you got to start stirring that up? Are you kidding me? What an awesome choice from that actor. And if that was in the script, just everything about that just worked. It felt so natural. Finally, I love the desert island game motif that they kind of strung through the film. I like how in the beginning everybody gives the answer their fans might want, but when shit gets real, they give their real answers. It's like a temperature check at certain points. I think that sort of thing can sometimes feel cheesy, but in this sense, it was handled almost like a confession, or like they were repenting, like they were coming clean. Because I also noticed how Pat never really gives his answer, and yet he's the only band member who survives. The rest of them give the answer and they all die. I'm not sure if that was some kind of way of being a red shirt, that if you came clean with your band, that you were now purified and you were yourself and you could go up to God or something. I don't know. I guess on that note, I'm going to wrap things up. I'm sure I could talk about this for hours, but I just wanted to say that I think the way Green Room ends is perfect. It's not about Emily, Amber, Gabe, Worm, or any of that stuff. It's about the Ain't-Rights surviving the night, and it goes back to that. It goes back to its log line. You know, it's a nice touch that the interview can be heard airing on the radio in the morning, and that kind of puts a nice cap on that element of the story that I think got forgotten. I also love how Amber cuts Pat off from answering the desert island question, because I feel like I said before, if he answers, it's kind of like a kiss of death in this Saulnier sub-universe. Alright, so anyway, that's going to do it for this ramble. Thanks for checking out this first episode of the Cinema Sanctum. If you enjoyed this video, please like, subscribe, turn on notifications, share, and comment below, because I'm curious to read your thoughts on Green Room. Oh, and let me know what your desert island band would be. I think if I had to pick one, my desert island band would probably be